Good afternoon, friends. It's Wednesday, December 8th, a time for reflection. I want to share with you a success story, a new success story, and one that's decades old, because I think we need to hear successes in this time of frustration and what often feels like as failures. But a little back history, if you will. Alcoholism runs in my family. It's scary that it runs in my family. My grandparents, my father's parents, were hardly ever around when I was a kid. I have very few memories of them. I don't remember them being around for my birthdays or my brother's birthdays or Christmas or those holidays. I remember my friends having their grandparents around, and I remember being upset about that. Why? And I never really did get a good answer. It wasn't until much later, just before I left for college, that my father said that his father was a heavy drinker, and that's one of the reasons why he wasn't invited. And it wasn't until even later, after I'd finished seminary, or in the middle of seminary, that my father explained and shared some of the stories of my grandfather's drinking problems. While on internship in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at St. Paul Lutheran Church, Pastor Frank said to me, "One of your outside connections will be to be involved with the alcohol and rehab facility that I have been connected to over the decades. I want you to know what's going on. I want you to be part of it." And so I went and got training to be a helper, to be a volunteer staff member. My task? To work with patients as they were preparing their inventory to be shared with family and friends. While I was there, the rehab facility also then branched out and began an adolescent branch of alcohol and rehab facility, and I was asked to be a part of that volunteer staff doing the very same thing. One of the things that frustrated me, enlightened me, scared me, and made me curious was that I got a chance to listen to their stories of how alcohol or drugs became so important in their lives and how those two things became so destructive in their lives. And I remember thinking, I do not want alcohol or drugs to run my life. I shared that with my folks when we returned back from internship. And I remember my dad being relieved that I said alcohol and drugs were not going to run my life. Throughout my life as a pastor, I know that I have been very much an advocate for groups like AA. I've been supportive and helpful, and I've even pushed some folks to think about AA when they've asked for my assistance in that direction. AA and the other programs have been a life-saving line for those people when alcohol and chemicals make their life unmanageable. So the decades-old story. In the last century, Joan and I had an opportunity to visit with family friends as they were moving from their state to Colorado. They wanted to be near their son, who was entering into a rehab facility. Their son lived in Colorado at the time. The parents had flown out to Colorado to be part of an intervention. When the intervention was over and the son entered the rehab, the parents on the way back said, "Let's move and be near him to help him in the midst of it all." Wonderful statement of faith and family life, I thought. As we sat at our house and I heard their story, I heard about the drug use that had been part of their son's life since high school time and how it had made him so dysfunctional. I also heard in their voice worry, fear, a sense of failure. They didn't succeed as parents, helping, protecting, and nurturing their son. I said I didn't think that was the case, and that I hoped that rehab would be a change moment. It was. It was a life-changing experience for all of them. A few months afterwards, I got a phone call. I was told about the graduation that had taken place, and with fear and trepidation in Dad's voice, "My son is doing well." Subtext, I'm still a little concerned about him and worried. 2 years ago, Joan and I had an opportunity to reconnect. Now, we've kept in touch with phone calls and Christmas cards, but 2 years ago, we were sitting in the mom's house. She's now single. Her husband has died. And she was just aglow with the work that her son was doing now. 30 years after his rehab experience. A stable marriage, children, a career, a loving household. All the things that she and her husband had hoped for their son had come to pass. When we communicated last, it's now been like 34 years of sobriety, 34 years of involvement with AA. And I've wondered, how many people has he sponsored in his AA career? Now the news story. This one began shortly after we entered into the pandemic close down time. A dad called me and said, I need to sit and talk with you. We set a time and a place, and we sat and had our chat. When the small talk was finished, the dad opened his heart slowly, with hard words. He was afraid for the future of his adult child. Too much drinking was what he said. Poor choices because of too much drinking. Short-tempered experiences with spouse and children because of drinking. Missing work deadlines because of drinking. All of those indications that something is just not right in the universe. All the classical signs of chemical dependency and dysfunctionality were at the surface. I asked him if he knew if the health care that his child and spouse had included assistance for chemical dependency. I have no idea, but I can check on it. Why? Well, if it is there, that would be an assistance in the cost of a rehab facility. Oh, was the answer. I'll get on that right away. But what can we do right now? And I said, well, I know that your family gathers regularly for meals. Might it be that the next time you're together, you have little or no alcohol available at mealtime? If you're worried about driving under the influence, when you sense something wrong, why not volunteer to drive your child home instead of allowing your child to drive while intoxicated? But I also think you need to find a time and a place to talk with the spouse and see what thoughts are there, where you all might be in agreement or where you are in disagreement, where you can support or whether you're going to be at loggerheads. It was a couple of weeks later when I got a phone call. We sat down, we had our conversation, and guess what? All three of us are unanimous in our agreement that something needs to change. Something needs to get better. Something needs to happen about drinking. And we're making plans. The healthcare does have a chemical dependency component to it, and they've recommended 3 different places for rehab. We're checked out one, and somebody's going to come and help us do an intervention. Please pray for us. I said I would. It was 2 weeks later, as I recall, that my phone rang again. Same dad. Well, I got to tell you, last night was just absolutely fantastic. We were afraid, and a few minutes into the intervention, we were relieved. When our child said, "You are right, drinking has ruled my life, and I need to make a change." So I got to tell you, today, my wife is taking our child and dropping our child off at rehab. I can't tell you how happy I am that this is taking place. That's good news, isn't it? Grandma and Grandpa stayed involved while their child was at rehab, oftentimes doing child care, taking care of the grandkids, especially when a spousal visit was required for the program. And then they got a chance to go. And the entire family was part of the rehab process. And it was such a remarkable moment for them to see things differently. Fast forward now. The other day, I got an email from Mom and Dad. They were so happy, so elated to say that their beloved child is doing so very well. The life changes that began during rehab work have taken root and are showing new growth. When they were all together at Thanksgiving, and since they kind of all live in the same bubble, their child asked a serious question. Why was there no wine at the table for the others? Somebody answered, well, it's to support you in your sobriety. The answer shocked the parents and the spouse. You don't have to deny yourselves. I know what I can and can't do anymore, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy a glass if you wish. Such confidence for someone who now has about 7 months of sobriety. I emailed back saying, so tell me what happened at dinner. Did you all go get wine? And the answer came back in a single word, no. I feel like they're there wanting to continue to support and not create obstacles. I did think of how intriguing that statement was and how challenging that statement was. I know my limits, and I will not break my commitment to my health and well-being, but you can continue to drink if you'd like to. I know many who have reformed their life of drinking or drug use and are able to stay sober and to say, don't worry about me. You enjoy your beer, your wine, your alcoholic drink, your drug of choice. I'll be okay. I know that I'm always uncomfortable in those situations. I don't want to be a stumbling block. There are 2 success stories to celebrate. I am sure there are many others out there, and I celebrate with all of you who have turned your life around from whatever dysfunction moment it might have been. God bless you. God keep you on that road, and let's celebrate together. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday, seeing your comments at least when I watch afterwards. And remember, until then, please, please, please wash your hands 3 or 4 times a day, 20 seconds each time. Put hand lotion on afterwards. Joan reminds me I need lotion because my hands are getting all cracky and ugly. Stay home if you're sick. That's important. Love one another. Love one another by doing simple things like wearing a mask. That's an important part. Keep that social distance when you need to. And of course, Sergeant Esterhaus finishes roll call every day with us by saying, be careful out there.